I'd like to welcome you up, Daryl. Come on up, sir.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right, well, this is interesting because this is not the first time I've ever spoke for AGC. The first time I ever spoke for AGC was online. I was asked by Travis to come in and do a presentation, and I did it right from my living room. That was cool, okay? So I get the opportunity to actually speak live and actually get to see who may have been watching me back then about 2-3 years ago, okay? So, like I said, my name is Deryl Glaze. I work for Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. I have my own private practice where I do coaching and motivational speaking for the recovery community. And one of the things that I find fascinating is I get the opportunity to see lives change. I get to see lives change on a regular basis. I've been working in recovery for over 23 years. I've been at Teen Challenge for over 17. So I've seen a lot of the different folks come through, go through things, fight the battle, go out there, get beat up again, come back in, and those kind of things. But the great thing is the reason why I keep doing this is because I always live for that one person that gets it right. Because I know that one person gets it right. I know they have the opportunity to affect thousands. So that's why we do what we do, and that's why we're motivated to do it every single day. But I didn't come to you tonight to talk about addiction, okay? What I did come to you tonight is talk about how we influence and how you may not think you are an influencer. And I'm not talking about the online kind and that kind of thing. I'm talking about actual influence, how you can make an impact in someone's life. So we're going to talk about influence, and one of the things I love about influence is how you can learn different ways to influence or where influence can come from in some of the most unlikely situations. For example, a number of years ago, it's about 8 or 9 years ago at Teen Challenge, we had a young man that was in our program, and the fact that he was there, he was 17 years old, he didn't want to be there, he was defiant, he didn't want to do anything as far as improving his life was concerned, okay? So he's in there with at that time, I think we had about probably 70, 80 clients there at the time. Inpatient intense treatment programs, so they are there every night. So one of the things that we work with folks on is trying to get them implemented back into life and doing life. So in the process of doing life, one of the things we have them do is we have them begin to work on life skills, okay? So there's chores you have to do, okay? So he's in here with other clients, and the clients vary in ages. I mean, he was 17. At that time, we were 17 all the way up to, I think the oldest client might have been up to 85. Yes. And one night, he was supposed to do a chore. He was supposed to mop this entire wing, which had 16 rooms in it, and 2-man rooms, so you had 32 residents just living down that hallway. In the process of this, the whole entire week, people have been saying, hey, why don't you do your chore, man? Why don't you do your chore? What's your problem? Make your chore done. What's wrong with you? And he just kept blowing it off. Well, it finally got to the end of the week. And when it got to the end of the week, he said, he went to breakfast, he ran into some guys that started getting on him about doing his chore again, and he slammed his bowl down on the table and said, all right, you want me to do my chore? I'll do my chore. He goes down to the wing. He grabs a mop bucket, fills it up with water, fills it up with soap, all the way up to the very top. He takes that mop bucket, he goes to the very entrance of that wing and takes it and just flings it down the entire hall. Water everywhere. So people start coming out of their rooms at 6 o'clock in the morning and start wondering what all this commotion is about. So they get out there and they're coming out and they're getting their feet sopping wet. Some even slipped and fell. And all of a sudden, before we knew it, we had almost a riot situation where people started yelling and screaming at him, threatening to beat him up, all these other different things. And he didn't care. He was just, you don't want me to, it's just done, And all of a sudden, this older client named Clyde literally put his hand on his shoulder and kind of pulled him back a little bit and kind of stepped in front of him and said, hey guys, listen, let's stop all this, okay? Let me talk to him. Let me just get a chance to just talk to him and see if we can get this thing resolved. So he kind of calmed the situation down. And he took him off to the side and he said, let me ask you a question. Do you even know how to mop? Have you ever mopped before? And the kid said, no, I ain't never mopped before. He said, oh, okay. He said, well, I tell you what, I think the biggest problem is you don't know what to do. So let me help you. I mean, I understand because when I was your age, I was working for my parents in the janitorial company that they own. So what he did is he took him back over to the mop closet, filled up the water, took the mop, walked back over to the wing. And he said, now this is what you do. You take your mop, you go inside, put it in the wringer, ring it, and then you start at the very end and start working your way back. All right? So he said, try that. He said, now I'll show you what to do in the process. So he did that. He corrected him on a few things. And then he finally got that wing totally mopped. The next night, nobody was looking for him to do his chore because he decided to get up and do it. Begrudgingly, but he did it. The third night, he started doing that chore again. This went on to a point that one of the things you had to do was that when you finished your chore, you had to get a client, you had to get staff to sign off on it to say it's done. Instead of going to staff to let them know it was done, he would go to Clyde first to make sure it was done right. And Clyde would look at it and tell him what needed to be fixed, or tell him, that it was good. And then he would go to staff and have staff check it off. But they didn't get good further than that, because this young man now, not only did he go and he started actually doing his chore, but he started helping other people doing their chore. Not only did he help other people do their chore, but they actually got him up to being now a chore captain for his group. And now he's showing other people how to do their chore. And he was very happy. He felt like he had learned something, had a purpose. His whole attitude about his treatment changed, and he began to be involved in his own success. See, influence, you have to understand, can come from anywhere. But tonight, I just want to give you 4 points of influence that I think can be a benefit to you. And if you're really good, I may give you a 5th one. Okay? First thing we talk about influence, first thing you need to have is you need to have character. In other words, know who you are. But more importantly, other people are always watching you to find out who you really are. Okay? I remember years ago, it was a motivational speaker that always used to say that confidence was arrogance under control. And I used to always shake my head and say, how wrong was that? Listen, confidence is knowing who you are. Arrogance is trying to convince everybody else who you are. So when you say confidence and arrogance under control, that's too much, that's just all the way out the box. So the most important thing is that you have to have character. So the young man was inspired by the character of the older client, Clyde, to be able to do his chore, to be able to learn something different. The second thing you want to make sure you have is you want to have a relationship. Clyde was able to make an inroads in this young man's life because of his relationship, because he actually offered to help when nobody else would. He offered to ask some questions to find out what the real issues were. The fourth thing you want to make sure you have is you want to have intuition. Now, whatever your gut, whatever your spirit, whatever you want to call it, whatever it speaks to you to tell you something that's going on. Something's happening. Clyde said that when he woke up that morning, something told him to go down to the other end of the building to that wing. He didn't know what was going on down there, but what he walked into was something that he was shocked, but at the same time knew exactly what to do. So you want to have that intuition. The fourth thing you want to do is you want to have knowledge. See, one of the great things about Clyde was that he had knowledge working in his parents' business in a janitorial service. So who better to teach him how to mop a floor than a guy that works as a janitorial service? So he was able to make inroads in this young man's life. And because he was able to make inroads in this young man's life, this young man had something that he could hold on to, something he learned, a new skill that could make all the difference in the world in his life. Now, I told you if you're really good, and it looks like you are, I might give you a fifth one. And since you're such a good audience, I'm going to give you a fifth one. And what makes you a good audience is the fact you ain't up here heckling me. So, but the fifth one is that in the process of being influential and being an influence, is you got to have love. You got to have love. When Clyde was getting ready to leave our program and go on to another level in this program, I asked Clyde before he walked out the door, I said, you know what? I said, you remember that situation with that young man, don't you? He said, yeah. I said, let me ask you a question. What made you want to pour into him? What made you want to make a difference in his life? And Clyde looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, I didn't want to see him fail. I didn't want to see him fail. I said, he was me when I was 17. And I wish somebody would have had the words to make a difference in my life. But I didn't want to see him fail. Clyde had a compassion. He was passionate about seeing this young man be successful. He was passionate about seeing this young man not go down those roads. He was passionate about this young man having a future. That young man today is doing pretty good for himself. No longer addicted to drugs. I think he's out of 8 to 9 years clean under his belt. So he's doing well. So what happened to Clyde, though? Well, Clyde decided to do something really, 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 really goofy. Clyde decided to continue in his recovery and then come back and work for me. So now he works for our program, and now he gets the opportunity to make a difference in other young men's lives and be an influence in every area of life. So remember, number one, you want to have character. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you that shows up every day to do exactly what you do that other people can learn and grow from you? You want to be relational. Are you relating to other people? Are you understanding what they're going through or dealing with? Can you see what those things are, and can they relate to you? Are you building upon those relationships just like you do at a networking event right here? Intuition. What's on the inside of you? What are you sensing? What are you feeling about that situation? What do you feel you need to do? How many of us can probably relate to there's times where we felt we needed to do something, but we didn't because we were too scared or didn't know about the unknown? The intuition. What's on the inside of you? And then, of course, knowledge. What do you know? What do you know that other people need to know? What information do you have at your disposal that other people can glean and learn from? What do you know? And then the last thing is love. Are you loving the people you serve? Are you having compassion to what they're dealing with and how to meet that need? You call them a customer, you call them somebody you work with, but are you really loving on them? Do you love on them before the money shows up? So having that love, having that compassion to make a difference in your life for the rest of your life. And just imagine what it can do for your clients as well. My time is up. I thank you for yours.